Are they allowed to keep the profits when this thing starts making money in, or what? Do you keep the AdSense?
I'll get it started here. I should put it like closer to my mouth, so
I can't even get it closer.
Can I get a megaphone when I do it? And attach the mic to it? All right, let's start it.
Go ahead.
Okay. What's going on, everybody? Landon from the SJND Sports Talk podcast, and today we are welcoming a very special guest. We are welcoming Alex Harris, who won state in 2004 on the basketball team. And there is a rolling basketball inside of the video, and if you find it, and if you comment the correct timestamp, you will win 2 free items for the Pilot Cafe. See you guys there. What's going on, everybody? It's Landon from the SJND Sports Talk podcast, and today we have another very special guest on. If you could introduce yourself and let the audience know who you are.
Yeah, my name is Al Harris. I am a SJND alum, class of 2004, and yeah, I played some basketball, I did some things, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Cool. So first question, how does it feel to be back on campus, and do you notice anything different?
Yeah, a lot of things are different. The bones are still the same. Like the gym always feels the same. Even just now, I went to use the restroom before we started, and I almost went to the wrong side. So thankfully, I didn't walk in on any ladies. But some of those things are flip-flopped and reversed, and even just signing in was a higher tech experience than I ever did. We used to just come in and say hey and sign a name, but I was all on the screen. So nice to see the school come into the modern era, man. It's changed a little bit, but the best parts are still the same.
Yeah. Well, you talk about the change, and despite going back to that, like when you were there, do you think you made the right choice of going here, or what aspects went into you choosing here?
Yeah, 100%. So I had an older brother that was already going here, 2 years older. So, first and foremost, I thought I had the choice of where I was going to go, but then my parents let me know, like, you weren't going to go anywhere else anyway, right? They're not doing the double drop off. And then I had started out going to public school, but I went to St. Joseph Elementary in 5th grade. So I felt like I kind of already was getting introduced to the St. Joseph family, kind of knew my way around campus and stuff, which made going here a little smoother. And then in hindsight, it was definitely the right decision. I wanted to go to public school in Oakland. All my really good friends went there. We were all playing summer ball together. So I was just like thinking basketball and my buddies. And I really think the experience I got here, the education, even just the biblical teaching, the Catholic influence was really influential on me as a person, a young person. And looking back, I still feel like there's hopefully good qualities I have that I picked up at St. Joe's. So it was absolutely the right choice for me. Yeah.
Right. Talking about academically, how do you think SJND has prepared you? Well, yeah, both athletically and academically.
Yeah, it's funny. I was giving this talk the other night at the Dreamflight event, but obviously there's great parts of St. Joe's academically. I was in algebra and honors English and was a pretty serious student getting started in school. Then I kind of faded away because all I thought about was basketball. Then I became a strong student again. And a lot of the subject matter was great, but one of the things that 20 years later I feel like helps me the most were some of the things I learned in between lessons, right? So like being on time to class and the teachers holding me accountable when I was lollygagging and being late, right? To this day, showing up on time to work, to meetings is influential, right? It says something about you from day one, gives you maybe more opportunities, how you conduct yourself, looking people in the eye, shaking hands, just being a mature, responsible human being outside of school and subject matter. I feel like I picked that up here and it has stuck with me and has benefited me in every step of my life. So, lots of good lessons. Don't want to downplay. I also feel like they set me up for college, which was great, but lots of good subject lessons and life lessons too.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think a lot of people, I think a lot of people don't realize the amount of things you learn outside of the classroom.
Yes.
And it's just like, sometimes it could be even more, like in your case, or
100%.
Well, SJND has prepared us all very well academically, so don't worry about that.
100%.
Yeah, and we were talking about Coach Lippy earlier, but what does his famous saying, "refuse to lose," mean to you?
Oh man, great question. First and foremost, that's like one of 9 million Coach Lippy sayings. So I'm glad that's the one that became famous. He's got some other ones that I feel like we should just leave in the locker room. I was thinking a lot about this. So refuse to lose, I think it's got a few meanings in between. The biggest one being, and I've heard this said in other ways, it's really hard to stop somebody who just never quits, who just never gives up, right? There's some people that have, in sports, in life, in business, God-given talent. Maybe they have some unique advantages because of who their parents were, what's in their DNA, where they're from. But if you never give up, if you never stop, if you never quit, then it's almost impossible to truly lose, right? So for me, I took away one of the things that I do have control over. If it's not my, intelligence or my height or my athleticism or my financial status that I was born into, I can keep going, and I'm gonna try to persist and do whatever I'm doing longer than my competition. And technically I have to win, or I'll get to the end of the road trying, right? And then the other thing is, and I picked this up over my travels, it was spawned by Coach Lippy with the Refuse to Lose. But my favorite saying is, you either win or you learn. So a lot of people say, like, you win or you lose, right? But to me, a loss is only a loss if you didn't learn something from it. So think about doing really poorly on a test. If you come back next semester and do poorly again, shame on you, right? Because you should have known, hey, I better prepare a lot better, right? Like, I obviously didn't do the work. I obviously didn't study well. Whatever preparatory method I had was not good enough. And I better change something. And if I change something, and now I know going into every test moving forward how to prepare better, then that first poor grade or F actually was a blessing. It was like a really good lesson. Hey, I'm not doing enough and I need to switch. Now I know that lesson forever. So for me, it's like, how's that an L? That helped me,
Yeah.
Same is true when you're trying to manage a property or buy your first property. Same is true when you're trying to play basketball. We got our butts whipped by this team. Clearly what we did was not enough, right? Let's go back, let's look at film. Oh, we're running these plays incorrectly. Oh, I'm not getting enough reps up on my shot. Oh, I'm not understanding my defensive responsibilities well enough. But it took that butt whooping to know that,
Oh, this is Did they have these type of bells when you were here?
Not at all, no. There's back to your change question. That's a change for the better. Nice beats. So long story short is I really used to take losses hard as an athlete, as a young person. I think most of us do when we're really passionate about something. And now I take them as opportunities to learn. And as long as I did learn or tried to learn, then I'm not really mad about that loss. It's more so just a chance for growth. So I kind of like that approach.
Sure. I mean, obviously, Refuse to Lose obviously helped you guys in 2004 because you guys did win.
Yes, sir.
State championship. Could you tell us a little bit about that experience of that whole season?
I can tell you a lot about it, man. That was an awesome year. So I'll give some context. Up until that point, for a long time, St. Joe's was Division I, and then heading into my senior year, we reclassified. So you couldn't just play in Division I because you had talented teams anymore. Now it was based on your school size, school population, right? So it was not up to you. So as a Division I school, we were competitive, but a little bit disadvantaged because we were so small. We're going against schools that have 10,000, 15,000 students. Naturally, they got more tall guys, more play, right? So we knew after our junior year after my junior year, we would reclassify, and that 2004 would be our first year in Division IV. For me, I took that as we must win state. It was like super. Hey, you know what? I feel like we are even more talented than this division, even though it's just based on school size. And my mentality is like, we're coming to win state. Period. So that was the idea heading in, and I think it was a gift and a curse. We started the year off only thinking about state, only worried about winning, only figuring out hey, we want rings or nothing. And by the end, what we realized is we need to concentrate on game by game, day by day, week by week, etc. So by the end of it, I think we had refocused and learned to take small, important steps towards building towards a huge goal, which was a big lesson that year. And then for me personally, there were a lot of growing moments, a lot of learning moments. One of the big things was I started the year off as a shooting guard and a scorer, and I kind of had a little bit of a name and a buzz. And we had several games where I would play amazing and score a lot of points, but we'd lose. And not going into too much detail, what I learned was sometimes you've got the right pieces, but they're on the wrong part of the chessboard, right? moved myself to point guard, freed up our point guard, who was an outstanding shooter, to get more catch and shoots off the ball. And that little switch and a couple other little strategy changes, and we won 21 games in a row.
That's crazy.
So my lesson from that is sometimes it's not just about like effort. We were playing hard, we're trying hard, we're training hard, we wanted it badly enough, but sometimes too you just gotta like step away and make a little shift,
right.
And that can make all the difference, right? So that was a pretty good life lesson I think I took away from that year.
Yeah.
And it was just awesome as well the way the school rallied behind us, man. Like all the teachers were supportive of us, all the students. We'd be like rolling around Alameda and some random person would stop and be like, keep going, y'all. You know, like
That's cool.
It really,
awesome.
Talk about St. Joe's and community. I really felt like not just the school and the parents, but the community was behind us. And that was a really cool feeling. We were playing with a lot of pride. You know, the small school from Alameda going all the way to Arco, Sacramento, and winning the state chip was awesome, man.
Yeah, that's super cool. And what is one moment from your time in high school that was motivational or impactful in a way that has like stuck with you until now and will for the rest of your life?
Man, what a good question. I mean, there's several. I mean, obviously winning state was like, you know, a huge one. I think about the classroom, the teachers that I got to have as well. There's a couple stories I'll tell, but I'll start with this one. We got more time, we'll get into more of them. What Coach Lippy did when he started here, and a big change that he made amongst like our team and just kind of how we conducted ourselves, is he put in a couple rules. Number one was, before every game, one of the players had to host a dinner for the entire team, right? So we didn't do that before Coach Lippy arrived, and then we started. I realized when he started that rule, there were guys I had been playing with for 3-4 years, going to practice with every single day, going to school with Monday through Friday, who I didn't know.
That is good.
Who gets to pick the songs?
I think students can request it.
Yeah.
But
You? Is that you?
Students requested.
Oh, that's legit.
that's awesome.
It was just a loud bell back in my day, so good for y'all. Where was I? Oh, okay. So we didn't have that rule. We didn't go to each other's houses. We didn't really know our teammates' families and stuff like that. And then once he put that rule in, eventually, obviously, you go to every single player's house, you get to meet their parents, test the home cooking, get to know their siblings, their families, etc. And that was eye-opening for several reasons. Mostly, you start to see your teammates as not just teammates or fellow students, but you see them as like family, you know? And that sounds really small, but anybody who's ever worked amongst a team and understood the difference between having colleagues and teammates with whom you have chemistry or with whom you care about one another versus not, it's like night and day difference, right? And how many times do you see in sports or in business a team that should lose, right? They don't have the firepower, a company that is like, you know, disadvantaged and they don't have billions of dollars to invest in their product, but everybody there just loves each other and is doing the right things and wants to see each other succeed, and then they overperform. That was like a major lesson I feel like I learned that season. And then the second rule that Coach Lippy put in was, if you had lunch money, let's say, and somebody on your team didn't, right? Or you had a meal, you had extra food, it wasn't an idea, it wasn't a suggestion, it was like a mandatory rule that you better share with them and better take care of them. And what happened is, without really putting any thought into it, unexpectedly you started caring a lot more about people. Not just their performance on the court, but like who they were. Are they doing all right in class? Oh, I see my boy over there doing something stupid. Let me go get him, you know? All right, I had money for extra lunch or extra, let me share it with my teammates. And that, I think, changed me as a person. I think I started to become a little less selfish, and I started to think about the group and start to think about others. And that's probably been one of the best lessons I've ever learned in life. It's just, you know, it's about much more than what you're doing for yourself.
Do you think that whole sense of like community and family within like SJND or Alameda even as a whole, like do you think that is a reflection of the team? and just that coming together?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a combination of a few things. I think it's a team. I think your team follows a leader, and Coach Lippy is just a selfless human being, right? Like, he's just one of those people that he just thinks of others first. He dedicates his time to others. And most people are like this. Any teacher, coach, professor, whatever, who's dedicated their life to working with young people, I mean, 9.9 out of 10 times, you know that they've made a decision to make their life about service and doing well for others, right? It's like, most people don't go, hey, I want to be a multi-billionaire, so let me like start a daycare, right? Like, or let me start, it's, there's something deeper driving you when you dedicate your life to helping young people, so that's a good sign. So I think having him as a coach and having this community of people who've dedicated themselves to like raising us up essentially was a big part of us taking on that personality. I think being from a small town, I don't know what it is, but wherever I go, I've lived in big cities like all over the globe, and I've lived in literally rural villages, right? And every time the folks that are further from a huge city or maybe further from easy access to resources seem to care more about their neighbor. So I think it's really cool to be like small town Alameda kids, right? And we used to hate being in the shadow of San Francisco, Oakland, LA, but now I'm like, I'm so glad I didn't grow up in a city with 10 million people who don't care about me, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
And you talk about all this family and stuff. Obviously, it paid off for you. You did play college and pros, but could you tell us a little bit right now about your athletic or academic career at UC Santa Barbara?
Sure, yeah. So earned a scholarship. So we won the state championship. I had a really good game, like 19-10 in the state championship game. So I was awarded some things, but those are only a result of your team doing well. I think I was the Cal High Sports Division IV State Player of the Year. I think I had a couple of NorCal Player of the Years and all that. So I got some pub. And I had actually already signed my scholarship to UC Santa Barbara prior to the season starting. I had like a crazy little injury in the summer and I kind of panicked. I was like, I gotta get a school locked in. So I signed right away. And so I attended UCSB and kind of had some acclaim, right? We started out though, and our first couple of years were pretty rough. We lost a lot of our talented seniors. I was kind of thrown into the fire. I was playing point guard, and it was underwhelming, unimpressive couple of years, in my opinion. I had made like all freshman team, but I wasn't like killing it, know? And then I came home the summer after my sophomore year. I started training with a well-known legend in Oakland named Raym Young. Same guy that kind of helped groom Dame Lillard and a bunch of just local legends. And he was doing, I won't go into details, but he's doing outrageous workouts. Like, we're just shooting until our arms got sore. He's throwing his truck in neutral. We have to push it up the street. We're going to Strawberry Canyon behind Cal Berkeley and running hills. After a 2-hour workout on the court, he was just training us mentally as much as physically. And I came back to school junior year, and it was like I was a whole new human being. I was just like, oh, speaking of left-handed shooters. So I came back junior year, and I felt pretty daggone confident. Like I just had that mentality, like the team was mine now, and that I was going to be relatively unstoppable, if you will. And so my junior year, I did play a lot better. I think I averaged 21 points a game. I was like top 10 in the nation in scoring. And then my senior year, what's up, sir?
Should meet you.
Al Harris, it's a pleasure.
You got taller.
Oh, did I? I'm just wearing thicker shoes. So anywho, got to UC Santa Barbara junior year after summer of working with Raym, running the Strawberry Canyon and doing the crazy workouts and stuff. And I played really, really well. And kind of got on the national, stage, if you will. And then my senior year, we won the conference. I was player of the year for the Big West and broke the school's all-time scoring record. And so that's where I kind of had the opportunity now to be looked at for the pros, going to the NBA draft, all that kind of stuff.
What was your experience like with the NBA?
Yeah, so it was a sad one, honestly. I thought I was going to get drafted 55th to the Los Angeles Clippers. I had an amazing workout with the Clippers. It was just like making every shot, scoring on everybody. I'm just like, yeah, we're going to the NBA. You know what I mean? I'm already like looking at houses I want to buy. It was awesome. And so I played really well. I worked out for every team on the Western Conference prior to the draft, maybe minus a couple. And then I knew that the Cleveland Cavaliers were really high on me as well. So I was kind of like, all right, I'm either going to go to one of these Western Conference teams, or I knew I would go to training camp with the Cavs. So draft night comes. I think I'm getting picked. I don't get picked. At the last minute, they take like a true point guard. I was kind of like a combo guard.
Right.
Nobody knew if I was a 1 or a 2. And they took a young guy, point guard, that I think was from the LA area, and they had seen a lot more. And so, that was that. And then the very next day, I showed up in Cleveland and worked out for the Cavaliers and just tried to make the team as a free agent. Played really well, didn't get invited to like the official fall camp, and that was it. I was kind of sitting there like, well, do I just, go look for a job or something, or there's this overseas thing I keep hearing about. And I actually was kind of like angry that I didn't get drafted. I felt like, hey man, I was really good. I worked really hard. Like this is messed up. So like, in my bitterness, almost hung up my sneaks, and then had a lot of, actually really grateful for this, a lot of NBA coaches, college coaches, colleagues that were already playing overseas essentially talked me out of retiring. And so started my pro career overseas.
Didn't you want to go out to the draft as a junior?
See, I don't know if we want to open up this can of worms, but technically. So I was invited to the combine as a junior, and my coaches, bless them, were trying not to get me excited about the opportunity.
They wanted you to stay.
Yeah. So I ended up not going to the combine, which was probably a mistake, because at that time after that junior season, just in terms of stats, right? Like then you have to weight these things. I played in what's called a mid-major Division I, which is very different than like a blue blood Division I, ACC conference, right? So my stats had me as one of the top 3 or 4 guards in the country, but then then you're waiting in all these other schools in this power. But I probably had a really good chance of being drafted if I would have left 1 year early. But at that time I felt like I was probably going to come back anyway. So
also remember when you went to Santa Barbara and you made the turn around the side and there's 3 girls there?
You mean for the visit?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Do we think that was staged to this day?
Yeah, I think it was.
So he's alluding to how beautiful the campus and the people at UC Santa Barbara were when I first went. But my old man wanted me to go to an Ivy League school, and wanted me to get in just a top tier education. So I was considering that Ivy League schools don't give athletic scholarships. But because I was a good player, they were almost like ensured you would get in, which is already a heck of an accomplishment. So I went to visit Yale in New Haven, Connecticut, 1 or 2 weeks before visiting UC Santa Barbara. So I went to Yale, it was great school, prestigious and all that, but it was freezing. It was hard to get to from here. I went with a buddy of mine who was also a talented player. He ended up playing at Yale. His name's Eric Flato. And in my opinion, when we did our workout, Eric and I were the best players on the court at 17 years old. Anyway, long story short, right after that, I went to Santa Barbara. It was 20 degrees warmer. They picked us up in golf carts. They flew us down from San Francisco in like a 9-second flight. And we flew over the ocean the whole time. We landed at this tiny airport that felt like a private airport, and then like 5 minutes later we're on campus. And they were rolling us around in golf carts, and they go, yeah, and this is where you'll be staying. And they turn the corner, and there's beautiful young ladies tanning in the grass. Like the ocean waves were like flowing behind. The building had just been built maybe 3 or 4 years prior, like a brand new dormitory. And without saying it in that moment, I had pretty much made the decision. I was going to UCSD. So. But a big influence was like, I honestly did not want my parents to pay for me to go to school, because they had, bought me basketball sneakers for 18 years, AAU tournaments, trips, countless nights where I'm making them drive me somewhere to work out and train. And I just honestly was like, I'm in debt that I'll never repay, but it would be nice to save them this, whatever, 80 grand to go to school, so we did that. Yeah.
Going back to the...
You're going to get me in trouble. Don't tell all these stories, all right?
I got a couple more.
Going back to the international overseas aspect of your career,
Yeah.
Did you notice a lot of other Americans out there too?
Yes, yeah.
What was like
definitely.
the ratio, like of Americans to Europeans playing?
Well, that's a great question. I should say I noticed American players, but in a lot of the places I went, there were not Americans just
Yeah.
living. So I played pro ball for 11 years, 10 in Europe, or I should say 9 in Europe, 1 in Asia, and 1 in South America. And most pro leagues at the Division I level, the highest level that they have a limit on the amount of non-domestic players, right? So, we think of them as foreigners, but obviously I'm playing in their country, right? So I'm the foreigner, right? So me as a non-domestic player, most of the time was capped at like 4. But then you had these weird rules for certain leagues. If you had 4 Americans, then you couldn't have any other Europeans that weren't from that country. But if you had maybe 2 Americans, maybe you could have 3 Europeans, so they don't have to be from that country. There's all these little mixes. In Poland, they wanted to really groom their young players to get the opportunity to play at a high level. So if you had a young Polish guy on your team and he played a certain amount of minutes, you could have 1 more American on the team. A lot of weird rules like that. So almost every team I played on had at least 1 other American. A lot of times it was 2 to 3. And most of the teams also had 1 other European who was not from the country we were in.
Okay.
And so if there were 12 people playing, there'd probably be 6 who were from that country, and then there were 6 that were from either Europe or the States. In terms of the country, it was wildly different everywhere. My first 2 years I played in Poland. At that time, probably still today, Poland, the country, was 96% Polish. Meaning out of every 100 people, 96 of them were from that country, probably hadn't really left, and had no plans on leaving. And you felt that as a 6'6" black guy from California walking around a Polish village at 22, you were very well aware that you were the foreigner. And then after that, I took a pay cut so that I could move to Germany because I had visited it on a trip, and I realized it's a lot more Western, a little bit more diverse, safer, cleaner. I just really liked it. So I moved to Germany, played the next 4 years there, and that was actually relatively, by European standards, relatively diverse. I lived in a town that had a university and a bunch of, Stuttgart, Germany is where Mercedes-Benz was founded, Porsche was founded. So like lots of jobs, very well-off city. Then there were a bunch of universities around, so you had people from like South America came to go to school there, some Americans. And then we have the largest non-US presence of armed forces after the war in Germany. So there's army bases everywhere. So you actually did run into Americans like fairly common. So that was a little bit better experience. And then I lived in Greece. It was mostly Greek, but awesome, amazing place. Italy as well. Lived in Israel, lived on the island of Cyprus, which essentially is Greece. Actually, they would hate that I said that. Cyprus is Cyprus, but it has a lot of Greek influence. And then I moved to South America. I lived in Argentina, and then I finished my career in Israel.
Wow, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Would you say like the dynamic between your American and European teammates, was it different or?
No, what's funny is basketball is like a language and a culture. Period. There's some nuances, but I almost feel like, get in the frame, coach. Goodness gracious, the people want to see you. Yeah. This was actually really cool. I realized this pretty early in my career. It's kind of hard to get a place. The language is different. The style of play could be a little different. But like once you throw a jump ball up, we're all speaking the same language, for sure. And that probably is why I survived that many years, was like, I was just speaking basketball. Like once you get me to the gym and show me where the weight room is, it's like, hey, I got it from here. And the same is true of like players. First thing is like, they're gonna teach you in certain countries is how to curse and talk a little trash, day one. So, immediately you're like, by week 2, talking trash with these people who you didn't know existed a week ago. And then you're spending like more time with them than most people spend with your families, right? We would do 18-hour road trips on a bus, double-decker bus with sweaty 7-foot European guys. You're going to become really close. 2 practices a day, film sessions, you got a roommate for the hotel, meals together, interviews together, school visits, autograph signings. Like, you just kind of become embedded with one another, and you become really close, whether English is their first language or you got different political views. It kind of goes out of the window.
And what was the European fan base like, and how does it compare to the U.S. fan base?
I think you like the politically safe answer, and then I'll hint at some of the details. But in general, I would say the European fans are just a little bit more passionate, and they are more comfortable expressing that passion. An example would be, when I played in Italy, we were underperforming for a part of the season, and the fans, like members of the fan club, which they have joined as an actual club, showed up to our practice and kind of wanted answers as to why we were playing below our talent level, which I feel like in the States would never have. Like, imagine me pulling up to crypto.com and just be like, Bron, that last fourth quarter decision was crazy. Like I don't think I'd make it pretty close, right? So the way that world works, that universe works, is that overseas, there's less money just sitting there for basketball, right? It's not these big arenas, not these big television contracts. So it's a little more grassroots. They got to do fundraisers, and raise the money, and get corporate sponsors, what have you. So the ticket sales of the fans, unlike in the States, are actually a large chunk of the budget for a sports team, right? In the States, it's like, no one can come to the game, but we got a multi-million-dollar cable deal. We got sponsored Louis Vuitton and all of them that are just throwing millions at us, ad revenue. Yeah, right? So it's like, you're not, if the Lakers don't sell out the arena, they're still gonna make money that night. Overseas, you really needed your fans to show up and buy tickets and come to the games. Therefore, the club would be more open to players or the fans coming and being around and trying to do things to cater to them. If they were speaking too badly about the coach, that coach actually was in jeopardy, Could you, the fans turn their back on the coach and all of a sudden his job's up in the air, right? So that world existed, but they were really, really passionate. Sometimes, unfortunately, and I think it's just because of a lack of means in some of the places I played, the fans were a little bit prejudiced and a little bit racist. And not just towards Black American players, but sometimes even, I played in ex-Yugoslavia, so there's a lot of nations that were once one country, one nation of Yugoslavia, and then they broke apart to form what we just refer to as ex-Yugoslavia. But it's, Serbia, Macedonia, Croatia, Bosnia, a lot of these places. So there was a lot of kind of rivalries. Imagine us having a civil war, and some of the feelings that are drummed up in society once you've chosen sides, even though we all used to be one. So Serbians and Croatians got a little bit of bad blood, at times. And one year we played one of the most legendary, best teams in Serbia, and our star player was Croatian. That was an interesting experience in front of the fans. We definitely had security every step of the way. They beat us, so I think it was relatively mild, but that player played really well, and he, maybe had a couple batteries thrown at him. They were lighting flares inside the gym, like a flare, like a soccer flare, right? That just draws smoke. They lit it in the gym, which you could imagine after a while got a little smoky in there. Yeah. And it was just intense, a little more hostile for sure, but
they're lighting flares in the gym, I mean.
But also, some Rebels tournaments in Bushrod in Oakland, California were pretty hostile as well. So it was, I think I was well groomed for that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, at least you were prepared for it.
I was ready for it, East Bay kids, we don't scare too easily, Yeah.
But going back to just your whole life, obviously, sounds like you enjoyed yourself being in all these different countries. How would that life of just being a professional basketball player, how would that compare to being in high school or college?
I'm interested to hear you weigh in on this, but I think when you're in high school, junior high school, you're looking a lot more for education. Or maybe we're not looking for it, but we're in need of it from your coach, from your teachers, from your parents. You're still forming, I think, what become the key characteristics to who you're gonna be in life. Now, if you're lucky, you're being told at that age, to refuse to lose and to take care of your teammates and look after them if they don't have lunch money. And regardless of whether your shot's falling or not, you're going to play like putting the team above your own needs. Hopefully you're getting those lessons in these really formidable years, these years where you're still being molded and figuring out who you're going to be and what you stand for. By the time you get to pro, you better have learned it, because it's a lot more cutthroat. And nobody in the professional reigns, they're going to try to work with you and develop your game, but they're not trying to be your parent or even role model. Really, they're doing business with you to a degree,
Right.
and you either are getting the job done or they're going to replace you with someone who is. So it was almost fairly common on every team I played for that a teammate or somebody would be let go for underperforming maybe halfway through the year. So I think the biggest difference is that's how it felt as a pro, is that you were a professional human being and you had a job to do, versus the years beforehand, you were still learning. There was more elements of fun. You're playing with your neighbors, friends, peers, and against some of your friends too, right? Like when we go to St. Mary's and win a game, I'm gonna see those kids like I'm gonna be talking to them all summer about it, The same with No Doubt. So it was very personal, communal, and it was like I was in those forming years. Later on, I kind of felt like, a soldier for hire. Was like my bag was just sitting there ready, and then tomorrow they'd be like, hey, you know what? Now you live in Tel Aviv. I'm like, cool, gone, right? Like it was. So it was a bit more professional. And yeah, we were talking about earlier, the benefit of St. Joe's is when I look back now and I think about, wanting to play OAL basketball or other schools I wanted to go to, I just think there's no way I would have gotten those kind of like pillars that I got here. Be it even the reminder to be a man of faith and us going to the church, be it, at a very small school, people know who you are. They care. They're like, what I mean? When I'm at the corner store doing something I shouldn't be doing, like every teacher knew who I was, and they knew who my parents were, and they knew who my brother was. So, it was a little easier to, I think, imprint upon me the habits that paid me later on in life. That's my perspective. But I'm actually curious. Do you feel a responsibility when you're coaching a high school player? Because you've coached college.
Yeah.
Do you feel more responsibility to impart on them like life lessons?
Because these years are the years that they learn.
Yeah.
And they carry it on to the next step.
Yeah.
And if you do a good job, you will see it there.
Yeah.
And so, I think you're almost kind of like a parent.
Yeah.
Especially some of the kids don't have parents.
Yeah.
And I think it's very, very important.
Yeah.
Very good structure.
And I don't want to speak back. I hope it doesn't sound like I'm dissing like Oakland Public Schools or Alameda Public Schools, because that's not the case. There's great teachers, those great schools, great people come from there. But I was like painfully aware at a young age that I was super blessed, right? To have my parents together, to be going to church, to have teachers that were passionate about teaching. They weren't burnt out at all. That in my experience, that were very passionate. They wanted to be there. This is what they'd chosen for their life. And I think all of those things probably saved me from doing stupid stuff, because I was a kid just like everybody else. And Oakland in the 90s, it was real easy to get into trouble, really easy. And I just, I think a big difference between me and some folks that I knew was that I had coaches checking for me, the teachers knew me, my parents were on me, and it kind of like, kept me on the right path. So I still feel that today when I walk in, even meeting Joe and just folks that were not at the school when I was here, they have that same energy and mindset. I can just see it. So it's still the same place that I would tell young people they're fortunate to attend.
Yeah, you said it perfectly there. It's just, we are all super blessed to even be here.
Definitely.
Like, you may have problems here, but it's not really compared to anywhere else, even like in a different country. It's like, your problems here are like blessings over there.
Absolutely.
Like, you are privileged to have those problems.
Absolutely.
But going back to basketball, what would you say is your just favorite part of it? Like, doesn't have to be super technical, just on a general level. What keeps you like still loving the game, I guess, or watching it or playing it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not the fanatic I was when I was younger, but For me, what I realized I loved that I learned other talented players didn't love was the process of getting better, the process of improving. That I actually became addicted to that. I enjoyed like, can I shoot on this shooting machine in the summer longer than everybody else on the team or everybody else in the gym or everybody else in the city? Can I keep shooting so long that like the trainer's tired and wants to go home and eat and I'm still there? Like I just had this quest to see how hard I could push myself. And, you know, basketball was like the stage through which I like enforced that kind of quest, you know? I think I probably would have been the same if I got into art or music or, you know, I noticed that about myself when trying to learn languages overseas. I do have this ability to just like really try to push myself to the limits and test myself. And so basketball was a great breeding ground for that, in my opinion. Loved, honestly, just like doing something physical. You know, I wasn't really the kid I didn't play video games and stuff. I wasn't the kid to just like sit down and look at a screen. I'm like climbing trees, riding bike. Like I was that kid, you know, just like I needed to just be active. So one of the cool parts about being a pro, and I remember like the first time someone handed me money for playing basketball, was this feeling of just being like I don't want to say like a gladiator or something like that, but like because of my physical training and effort and determination and just like bravo or whatever, I was earning income. And I thought that was really cool, you know, like it wasn't like, because I, you know, passed the test with 100% that I was doing better. It was like I had pushed myself to get to a level that I was unique or maybe more gifted. I enjoyed that. And about the like team and family element, I think that's really cool. You're gonna go through stuff in life, and I think if you're lucky, you'll have people to go through it with who will keep you from crashing and burning. Most of those people for me I found through basketball. And my two best friends who are on that state championship banner with me, I was with them last month in London. You know, we help raise each other's kids, godfathers to my children and vice versa. The bonds that you build in sports, for me it was basketball, but in team sports I think are second to none. They're just, you know, you've experienced something, a fatigue, an endeavor that is just greater than like the average circumstances can provide. I don't think I could have been on like a homework group for chemistry that would have just come to, you know, like bled together. It's a different level of like commitment to one another and teamwork than you could find in anything else other than sports, in my opinion.
And this past weekend, you were the alumni speaker at the Dream Flight fundraising gala for SJND. So what was it like to be among all the other alumni and teachers and friends from SJND? And what were some things you touched on in your speech?
Yeah, that's a good question. It was a cool experience. I'm really grateful, you know, Vicky and Eileen, Father Kim, that one, they thought I was even worthy to speak in that room. You know, that was my first time inside the Claremont Country Club. I don't know if y'all have ever been there, and I'll be honest with you, I don't get invited to a lot of country clubs, so that was cool just to be in that room. Pretty impressive room. I feel a little self-conscious because truly, like in my mind, a lot of times I'm asked to speak to like young people, athletes, what have you, and that's easy. It's like speaking to yourself, right? But going to speak to people that are incredibly successful, they've done major things, they've given back, I feel very unworthy. Like, what do I have to tell y'all? Right? But being there, I think it was wonderful to just see how close the St. Joseph community is forever. There were folks there who were like class of, you know, 50s, 60s, and they were second generation. They weren't the first ones to attend St. Joseph, right? Before it was even St. Joseph Notre Dame. And they still cared enough about the upbringing they had and the education they had to dedicate their time and money, right? This guy's famous. I know that was going to happen. Can't bring him anywhere. And, you know, you got to put on Do Not Disturb.
How do you do that?
No, I'll do it for you. He'll call you back.
It's so goofy.
Okay, but give it back to me after so I can put it back off. We'll work. So what I touched on in my speech, I talked a lot about Coach. I talked a lot about the education I was given on how to conduct myself well and prepare myself for life. A life that I didn't know would take me to 4 continents, live in 8 countries, visit some 30 places. But I was very solid in who I am as a person, which you really need to have that when you're an 18-hour travel day away from your family, And that was probably the biggest gift St. Joe's gave me. I was fairly certain of who I was and how to live my life. And then I talked a lot about, who knows what I said. I kind of blacked out up there, Joe might recall, but I think the main messages I wanted to get across were what my travels taught me were that our best day, I think you said it earlier, our worst day is somebody's best. The things that we take for granted every single day, like being able to vote or, being able to find shoes in your size and afford them, being able to put on a suit jacket, like to us, this is not even some major accomplishment. And I can tell you, I've gotten to know people really well who that would be one of the biggest things in their year if they got to do any of those things. Once you see that, you just can't unsee it and can't, miss it. And I hope it didn't take too sad of a tone, but I was just talking about kind of the difference between the gratitude I've seen people have for life with so little versus coming back to the Bay Area, and if your company's not valuated at $10 billion, you feel like a failure. It's just like a comical thing after you've seen certain other places. So, my grandmother is really important to me. My daughter's middle name is named after her. And when when my grandmother passed, we talked about this Psalm 23. It's, the Lord is my shepherd, shall not want. And in there is this line about, he anointeth my head with oil and my cup runneth over, right? Basically, it's like, we're blessed, we're spoiled, right? I don't just have enough to drink, it overflows. And I just kind of asked people in the room, because they seemed really successful and like they probably had some overflowing cups at time, to consider sharing, some of that excess with those that are thirsty. And it's a message for myself too, right? I'm not trying to say, hey, go give away everything you have, but I think when you have enough, feel free to look after some others. And thankfully we're in a room of people that had already made that decision in life. So it was just cool to see what it looks like to make it to that level, and then to be surrounded by people that cared enough about y'all and other students to share their success. That was really cool.
Yeah, for sure. I hate to keep asking these basketball questions because you're talking about all this life advice and stuff. So I hate
This is what happens when you get older, right? Yeah. Like when you're younger, you're like, I like to dunk from the 3-point. But then as you get older, you're like, life's about helping people.
It's all good. At least we know at a younger age.
Yeah, for sure.
But what would your favorite basketball moment or memory at SJND be?
Easy as state championship. Yeah. It was coach's first title. You're welcome. State title. It's been on our case. I never won state. I need to win state. I'm like, we get it, man. You don't have to be on our. It was awesome. I was as happy for coach to win his state chip as I was for us, because he deserved it. And then, so that one was great. But I was thinking a lot about it. And actually, when I was still at the elementary school, I came, and I'm so sad to hear that we don't do alumni game anymore, but I came to an alumni game, and it was the same year as the NBA lockout, one of the first ones. So Jason Kidd, who everybody should know, showed up to the alumni game and played. Jason Kidd, at this time he was already like Jason Kidd, owned sneaker, Nike, he was the man. Came and played in this high school gym against those poor kids, and I was like 5th or 6th grade, and it was amazing to see, and I got to meet him a few times. Amazing to see him. He was playing bad. I think he wasn't taking it that serious, and they were actually losing. And then in the last 3 minutes of the game, he was just like, let me win it real quick. Hits 3 NBA threes, nice pass, steal, game. Just he just decided we're done messing around. To see that talent, but more so what I was impressed by was this guy came back to a high school alumni game however many odd years later. He's worth so much money. There's so many things he could be doing right now, and he showed up to this. And it wasn't the last time I saw him too. He came on the campus several times, spoke to the players. And there was a lesson I think imprinted right to never forget where he come from. And this is one of the best parts to me about being from Alameda and Oakland is that's true of like most people I've seen make it. Marshawn is that way, Lynch, Damian Lillard is that way. Who else comes back a lot? I mean, Jason is that way. Gary Payton is that way. Gary Payton gave money to our AAU team to fund a lot of my AAU team when I played with his little brother. Something about growing up in the right place and being taught the right lessons, you just see it in action. And you know, people can tell you that all the time, but when you see your like childhood heroes doing it, you're like, oh, I'm definitely gonna be the same way, you know, if I'm given the chance. So long story short is I remember that game, but more so I just remember the fact that somebody at the absolute top who I wanted to be like one day was making it a huge point to be here for those that came behind them, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what advice would you give your freshman self, or any advice for athletes in high school right now?
The first thing that came to mind is I would tell myself as a freshman to relax a little bit. I was pretty intense. You didn't know me as a freshman.
No, but I played you one-on-one. Remember that?
Did we? Yeah, probably. How'd that go?
I think I won.
There's no chance. Don't lie to the people, coach. Don't lie to them. I don't want to. I didn't bring my shoes. I don't believe that. He might have beat me in a shooting competition once. He definitely didn't beat me one-on-one. That's why I stand by that. Man, I was a really intense kid. And part of me is like, I don't really want to change that because I do think it was part of the reason that I had some of the success that I had, because it wasn't God-given talent. I was not, like there were kids from Oakland that were just, they should be pros, just looking at them. But I was really intense, I was really competitive, and I was really ambitious. And I still am. And I think, with still keeping the same work ethic, I would go back and tell my young self, like, relax a little bit. Enjoy going to school. Enjoy being a freshman in high school. Enjoy not having bills to pay. Enjoy, the little things that will be gone soon, right? Like just, even certain classes, your teachers, having a community full of people that give a darn about you versus like entering into the real world and it's kind of like everybody's a competitor for that job, that project, that promotion. Time with family, like living at home. I know when we're teenagers, we can't wait to move out of our parents' house, but then it's like, you're gonna have 70, 80 years to go live outside your parents' house. Enjoy those home-cooked meals. Enjoy, these people that love you more than anyone you'll ever meet in your life. I would say be present is probably like the biggest lesson I could share. Don't be dreaming about NBA all day in class, and don't be stressed about if you're gonna get a scholarship, and don't be worried about what tomorrow's gonna bring. It's like, it'll come soon enough. Be present and enjoy this moment. And advice for young athletes is, first and foremost, intelligence is like probably the greatest skill set that you could have even in athletics. And it doesn't mean you have to be like a rocket scientist or have perfect GPA. It means you should embrace the joy of learning, because that, if you want to be successful in life, that should never stop. Maybe you're learning algebra, chem, Spanish, then you're learning languages, overseas, then you're learning new plays, then you're learning how to pay rent for the first time, then you're learning how to change a diaper, then you're learning you should think of learning as like a privilege and a joy. And if you do, you'll be really surprised. Like, life starts to change when you're not afraid to open up books. I read way more now than I did in school. I've learned way more from my travels as an athlete than I did. And being able to learn, work with a new coach, be in a different country, keep a positive mindset, etc., I think had way more to do with my success as a pro athlete than my skill set. My personal take. I guess I'm saying that to athletes because it was I had some moments in high school where I said, I don't really care that much about social studies. Like, I'm trying to get my crossover tight, you know what I mean? I'm trying to get my 3-point shooting percentage up. And it was a mistake. It was like just this ability for your brain to expand, being open to things, doing your best in whatever you are doing, being it like tying your shoe or prepping for a state championship game or prepping for your finals. This commitment to giving your absolute best effort is probably one of the greatest decisions you can make to do in life. To be the best partner to your, if you're in a relationship, to be the best child to your parent, like just to give your best is key. Like we were talking about earlier with the refuse to lose. The only way to really fail is to give up. So as long as you don't give up, then you're winning and you're gonna get where you wanna go.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so one other big takeaway I got from you just talking to us about just life in general and stuff is just that just to enjoy the moment and be present in it.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like a lot of like things or problems that high schoolers have is that they're so like obsessed with how the future's gonna be and stuff that like they don't really focus on the present, and then the future's there already and they're not prepared for it.
100%. And I'll tell y'all, time flies. Every year goes by faster, every year older you get. If you think about a slice of pie, right, and this is your whole life, if you're 1 and you turn 2, it's been sliced in half. There's 2 big old chunks, right? And that's still the whole pie. When you turn 38, think of how small those little slices are. Think of how quickly you would eat through one slice of pie if it was sliced 38 times, right? That's how I feel about time passing. So
How does 76 look like?
so I'll find out. I mean, it flies, right? Like,
Yep. As far as what I do with basketball, with treating people, I got taught very well by my father and my mother how we treat people, and I like to see that more done today than what we actually do. But yeah, basketball is still there. So, what you ever think of becoming a coach?
I did, yeah. After 11 years of like living out of a backpack and luggage, I honestly purposely removed myself from like the coaching consideration because of the lifestyle. So, and I think, at the high school levels and stuff like that, there's ways to get some security in it. But in my experience, especially as a pro, coaching was like a very low security profession, right? You'd be let go halfway through a season. If you want the next available job, the only opening is at the University of Maine, right? You're gonna pack your bags and your family and move to Maine, you don't know, right? I did that selfishly as an athlete. And then I think later when I wanted to have a family and just kind of wanted to have a hometown again, that took me away from coaching because I connected the two. Funny thing is, I feel like a lot of people told me that you should coach for most of my career, and which I took as a compliment, but I was like, oh, nah, it's not for me, I'm not gonna do it. And then sure enough, I coach right now. So I like manage a sales team with young people, and it's my responsibility to like coach them up on their career, sales, motivate them every day. And then I'm a partner in a company that helps athletes at the end of their careers transition into corporate America, and I coach them up on the transition. So I think when you're called to do something, you can try to avoid it all you want, but it's gonna find you. And then a bunch of players, like I have a bunch of players, dear friends that are coaching in the NBA or elsewhere, and they're always like, you'll be back. And so, who knows, maybe down the road. But yeah, I think in terms of basketball, I just wanted to see if I could do anything else, which been a nice pivot, and maybe I'll get back into it at some point.
You come back here.
Those shoes are too big to fill. God bless Busan, but I wouldn't want to follow up the myth, Don Lippy. So, but we'll see.
Yeah. Anyways, we are out of questions. But one last thing we would like you to do is that we've been doing this thing where wherever alumni come on the show, we would like them to sign a little part of a wall in the weight room.
Oh, awesome. Yeah,
so
for sure.
You would like to do that?
I'd be honored. You
right
used to
now.
get arrested for that back in the day. It was called graffiti. It was called tagging, but I'm happy to do it. Hey, thank y'all for having me.
Yeah,
this is
of course.
really
Thank
cool.
you
Thank you for coming on.
Good
Yeah,
luck
really
to y'all.
Thank you.
I think this is awesome what you guys are doing, so
Thank you.
keep it going.
Yeah, we really appreciate you coming on. So yeah, let's go sign the wall.
Let's do it.
Thank you, Coach, for coming on.
Yeah, hey, what a nice surprise. Wait, give me your phone so I can turn it back on. Because you'll never hear your phone ever again if I don't do it. So.
I don't even know what it does.
For JV, so we just be on the side, trying to like come dunk on these ones. That room's special to me though. You know, Coach has the key to every building in Alameda. I don't know if you guys.
I did bring him.
Okay. That's it.
The universal key.
Yeah. Oh, y'all are so fancy. As a Cooper, the size of just a giant. He's like, oh, I'm the only name that's gonna be signing here. We put our graduation year next to it.
Yeah.
All right, I'm not gonna sign that big. I'm not good enough to sign that big. You gotta let Jason sign that big. Is this cool?
Yes.
Up to you.
What year did I graduate?
2004.
There we go.
All right. Thank you.
And thank you all. Appreciate it, man. That was cool. That was really cool.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, great to meet you boys.
Probably like 3 years.
What percentage of the time you want?
Thanks for making it this far in the video. We hope you guys enjoyed. And don't forget the rolling basketball in the video so you can find 2 free items from the Pilot Cafe. See you guys.